What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with another tune from the 1998 anime of Trigun. And of course, shout out to my friend Chris up in Alaska, who has given me access to Trigun Stampede, which is the much more recent remake of the 1998 show. I've not yet seen it, but I will do a watch-along for it on my Patreon in the coming months. And I have completed a full watch-along of the 1998 show. So yeah, shout out to Chris, with whom I've talked about the show going back many years, to Sophia, to Michaela, at least in a few cases to Izzy and Solo and some other people who commented. But yes, ultimately, I hope over time more and more people check out my full completed watch-along of the show, because it's an incredible series and I enjoyed going through it and re-experiencing some of the storylines that I didn't recall in detail until they were happening. So yes, that was a very fun experience, and there's still many more tunes in the soundtrack to go through, which is composed by Imahori Tsuneo, who also plays guitar on a lot of the tracks. And this tune, Big Bluff, is another one in the Western frontier type of vein, of which there are several in the soundtrack. And the soundtrack came out on a couple different releases, stylized around the donuts, which, if you've seen the show, you will know the main character, Vash the Stampede, the $60 billion double dollar man, the humanoid typhoon, is quite fond of double donuts, and they are a visual and comedic motif as the series plays out. But again, it's a show with some heavy philosophical themes and debates. There's deep and brutal emotions at times, but also light joy and a lot of laughs too. So it's a show that combines a lot of different feelings and some over-the-top characters, including Vash, but many others as well. And yes, so Big Bluff, as I said, has a very Western on the frontier type of sound. I think it's used especially in the first few episodes in a handful of scenes. And in that regard, it makes me think of Vash when people aren't sure about his identity. I think it's used in a couple cases where some of the characters are talking about this reputation that Vash the Stampede has, and this guy in a red coat who's in front of them acting a bit zany and silly, and there's this ambiguity or mystery around whether this person is really the legendary gunman and first human disaster. Like, the government of this sandy planet has designated him as a national disaster, or like an environmental disaster, despite the fact that he's a person. So yes, let's give it a listen. This is Big Bluff by Imahori Tsuneo, the composer of the Trigun 1998 soundtrack, and away we go. So, yes, it's another tune that I think has a bit of that East meets West vibe. Obviously, the guitar and the bass have a very frontier rock sort of sound, but that flute, it gives it a bit of an Eastern flavor. At the very least, I think the flute conveys that mystery in the sense of, wow, who is this guy? And is he really the guy that, we keep hearing about in all those wanted posters? And of course, there are some specific scenes that come to mind that are maybe not only about Vash. I'm thinking of, I think, is it the third episode? Maybe it's the second episode. There's an episode pretty early on about water rights in this town and the way this manorial magnate is essentially monopolizing the water and making a lot of money off of it despite making everybody else in the town suffer. And there's a undercover agent who goes in to investigate the situation and expose him. I remember this tune plays prominently during a scene in that episode. But yes, by and large, it does make me think of Vash, especially in the early episodes when his identity, at least for most people in this show, if not necessarily the audience, because I think pretty early on, we, the audience, get a sense that, yeah, this guy in the red coat, he actually is Vash the Stampede, even though no one can seem to believe it, given the reputation. But yes, for a lot of the other characters in the show, there is this ambiguity as to his identity, and I associate this song with that phase of the story. In any case, many more tunes to react to from the soundtrack, so I'm looking forward to those. Let me know what you think of this, and I'll see you for the next one. Peace.